The strongest man who ever lived was not defeated by an army, not by a king, not by 1,000 warriors. He was defeated by a whisper from the lips of a woman he loved. And by the time he realized the truth, it was already too late. His 2 eyes would be gone. His freedom would be gone. His strength would be gone. But before the story ends, a blind prisoner would shake an entire kingdom. This is the story of Samson and Delilah, a story of strength and weakness, love and betrayal, power and redemption. And it begins before Samson was even born. The land of Israel groaned under the rule of the Philistines. For 40 long years, the enemy controlled the people. Fear had become a way of life. Parents whispered warnings to their children. Farmers surrendered portions of their harvest. Warriors hid their swords. Israel needed a deliverer. But no one knew that God was already preparing one. In a small town lived a man named Manoah and his wife. They carried a pain known by many couples, but spoken by few. They had no children. Year after year they waited. Year after year they prayed. Nothing changed. Then one day, everything changed. As Manoah's wife worked alone, a radiant figure appeared before her. She froze. The stranger's presence was overwhelming. His face seemed to shine with heaven's light. "Do not be afraid," he said. "You have not been able to have children, but you will conceive and give birth to a son." Tears filled her eyes. A son? After all these years? The messenger continued, "The boy must be dedicated to God from birth. No razor shall touch his head. He will begin to deliver Israel from the Philistines." The woman ran home breathless. "Manoah," she cried, "a man of God appeared to me." Soon the heavenly messenger returned. This time, Manoah saw him too. The couple fell to the ground in awe. When the messenger ascended toward heaven in the flames of their sacrifice, they knew they had encountered an angel of the Lord. Months later, their son was born. They named him Samson. And from the beginning, he was different. Years passed. The child grew. The Spirit of God moved upon him. His strength became legendary. As a young man, Samson could do things others could not. Lift what others could not lift. Fight as others could not fight. Yet beneath the strength was a dangerous weakness. Samson had a habit of following his eyes, and what his eyes desired often overruled what his heart knew. One day he traveled into Philistine territory. There he saw a woman. The moment he saw her, he wanted her. Returning home, he announced his decision. "I have seen a Philistine woman. Get her for me as my wife." His parents stared in disbelief. "A Philistine?" his father asked. "Is there not a woman among our own people?" But Samson would not listen. "I want her." His voice was firm. "Get her for me." The decision would begin a chain of events that would shape his destiny. On one journey to visit the woman, Samson walked through vineyards alone. Suddenly, a terrifying roar shattered the silence. A young lion exploded from the bushes. Its muscles rippled. Its teeth flashed. Death charged toward him. But the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson. With his bare hands, he seized the lion. The beast clawed. It snarled. It fought desperately. But Samson tore it apart. Alone, unarmed, as though it were nothing more than a young goat. No one knew what had happened. No one except Samson. Days later, he passed the same place. Inside the lion's carcass, bees had built a hive. Golden honey glistened within. He scooped it out and ate. The strange sight inspired a riddle that would soon ignite a war. The wedding feast began. Music echoed. Guests laughed. Wine flowed freely. 30 Philistine men surrounded Samson. Feeling confident, he challenged them. "Let me tell you a riddle." The men grinned. They loved games. "If you solve it within 7 days, I will give each of you a fine garment." "And if we cannot?" they asked. "Then you must give me 30 garments." The wager was accepted. Samson smiled. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. The men looked at one another, confused. Hours passed, then days. No one could solve it. Their amusement turned into frustration, then anger. Finally, they approached Samson's bride. "Find out the answer," they demanded. "If you don't, we will burn your father's house with fire." Terror gripped her heart. That night, she wept before Samson. "Do you even love me?" she cried. "You hate me." Samson sighed. "I haven't even told my parents." But she continued. Every day she cried. Every day she begged. Every day she wore him down. Until finally, Samson broke and told her the answer. The moment the secret left his lips, the trap was set. On the 7th day, the Philistines approached with smiles. "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" Samson froze. His stomach tightened. His eyes narrowed. He knew exactly what had happened. He looked at them and said words that burned with fury. "If you had not ploughed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle." Betrayal. The woman he trusted had sold his secret. And this was only the beginning. Because years later, Samson would trust another woman. A woman far more dangerous. A woman named Delilah. And unlike the first betrayal, this one would cost him everything. The betrayal at the wedding feast ignited something dangerous inside Samson. Anger, rage, a burning desire for revenge. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him once again. He struck down 30 Philistine men and took their garments to pay his debt. Then he walked away from the wedding, humiliated, betrayed, heartbroken. But the story was far from over. When Samson later returned to see his wife, carrying a gift and hoping to reconcile, he was met with shocking news. The father of his bride blocked the doorway. "You cannot see her," the old man said nervously. Samson frowned. "What do you mean?" "I thought you hated her, so I gave her to your best man." The words landed like a spear. For a moment, Samson said nothing. Then his jaw tightened. His fists clenched. The woman he had loved had been given to another man, without his knowledge, without his consent. Something inside him snapped. "This time," Samson said quietly, "I have every right to get even with the Philistines." The vengeance that followed became legendary. He captured 300 foxes, tied them together in pairs, fastened burning torches to their tails, then released them into the Philistine fields. Fire raced across the countryside. Wheat fields erupted in flames. Olive groves burned. Vineyards vanished in smoke. Months of labor disappeared in a single night. The Philistines were furious. "Who did this?" they demanded. "Samson." Their anger turned toward his former wife and her family, and in an act of terrible cruelty, they burned them alive. The very threat that had once been used against her had now become reality. When Samson learned what happened, grief mixed with fury. More bloodshed followed. Battle after battle. Strike after strike. The conflict between Samson and the Philistines became personal, deeply personal. Soon entire armies were hunting him. One day, 3,000 men from Judah came looking for Samson. Not to help him, to surrender him. The Philistines had threatened retaliation against the nation. Fear once again ruled the people. The men found Samson hiding in a rocky stronghold. "What are you doing?" they asked. "Don't you know the Philistines rule over us?" Samson looked at them in disbelief. These were his own people, yet they had come to hand him over. "I have only done to them what they did to me," he replied. Reluctantly, Samson allowed them to bind him. 2 new ropes wrapped tightly around his arms. The men delivered him to the Philistines. The enemy celebrated, shouting, laughing, certain their greatest enemy was finally defeated. But then something extraordinary happened. The Spirit of the Lord rushed upon Samson. The ropes snapped like burned threads. His hands were free. Looking around, he found the jawbone of a donkey lying on the ground. Not a sword, not a spear, a jawbone. Yet in Samson's hands it became a weapon of terror. The Philistines charged. Samson charged back. One by one they fell, then dozens, then hundreds. When the battle finally ended, 1,000 Philistine warriors lay dead. 1,000, defeated by one man and a donkey's jawbone. The legend of Samson spread everywhere. Children told stories about him. Soldiers feared him. Kings worried about him. No prison could hold him. No army could stop him. No warrior could defeat him. But there was still one enemy Samson had never learned to conquer: himself. Years passed. Samson judged Israel for 20 years. His strength remained unmatched. His reputation grew. Yet the weakness that had followed him since youth remained hidden beneath the surface. He still followed his desires. He still trusted too easily. He still believed he could flirt with danger and walk away unharmed. Then one day, he met her. Delilah. The woman whose name would be remembered for generations. No one knows exactly how they met. Perhaps their eyes met in a crowded marketplace. Perhaps she heard stories about him first. Perhaps he sought her out. What we do know is that Samson fell deeply in love. For the first time in years, he found companionship. Someone who listened. Someone who laughed at his jokes. Someone who seemed fascinated by him. And Delilah knew exactly how powerful that feeling could be. The rulers of the Philistines soon heard about the relationship. Immediately they saw an opportunity no army had ever been able to create. They came secretly to Delilah. 5 powerful rulers. 5 wealthy men. 5 enemies with one mission: find his weakness. They placed a fortune before her. Enough money to change her life forever. Then they made their offer. Persuade him to tell you where his great strength comes from. Delilah stared at the silver. More money than most people would ever see. Find out how he can be subdued. Silence filled the room. Then Delilah agreed. And from that moment forward, the trap was set. That evening, Samson arrived smiling, completely unaware. Delilah welcomed him warmly. She sat beside him, rested her head on his shoulder, then softly asked a question. Samson, his heart melted. Yes. What makes you so strong? He laughed. The question seemed harmless, almost playful. If anyone ties me with 7 fresh bowstrings, he said, I'll become as weak as any other man. Delilah smiled. But behind the smile, plans were already moving. The next time Samson visited, she put the test into action. As he slept, fresh bowstrings bound his arms. Philistine soldiers hid nearby, waiting, watching, breathing quietly in the darkness. Then Delilah cried out, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. His eyes opened instantly. The bowstring snapped. The soldiers froze in terror, and Samson stood unharmed. Delilah acted offended. You lied to me. Samson laughed. It was only a joke. But she wasn't finished. Not even close. Again she asked. Again he lied. Again she tested him. Again the trap failed. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Question after question. Plea after plea. The pressure never stopped. Each time Delilah moved a little closer to the truth. Each time, Samson moved a little closer to disaster, and neither of them could see how close the end had become, because eventually, Delilah would stop asking playful questions. Eventually, tears would replace smiles. Eventually, she would discover the one secret Samson had protected his entire life. And the moment he revealed it, everything would change. The strongest man on earth was walking toward the darkest night of his life, and he didn't even know it. Samson was finally growing tired, not physically, but emotionally. Every conversation seemed to lead back to the same question. Every quiet moment, every romantic evening, every peaceful afternoon. Delilah always returned to it. What is the secret of your strength? At first, Samson laughed. Then he joked. Then he changed the subject. But Delilah never stopped. Day after day, week after week. The pressure never ended. One evening, she sat across from him, tears streaming down her face. The setting sun painted the room in shades of gold and crimson. Yet her voice trembled with sadness. "How can you say you love me?" Samson looked up. "What do you mean?" "You keep secrets from me, Delilah." "No." She shook her head. "You've mocked me 3 times. Her eyes glistened. "If your heart truly belongs to me, why won't you trust me?" The words pierced deeper than any sword, because Samson loved her, and love has a way of lowering defenses, especially when trust is involved. Delilah moved closer. Her voice became softer, gentler, more vulnerable. "If you cannot trust me, then perhaps you never loved me at all." Silence filled the room. For a long moment, Samson said nothing. His heart battled his judgment. And slowly, his judgment lost. For the first time, his face became serious. Very serious. He looked into Delilah's eyes. Then he spoke words he should never have spoken. "No razor has ever touched my head." Delilah listened carefully. Every word mattered. "I have been dedicated to God since birth." Samson swallowed hard. "If my head is shaved, my strength will leave me." The room became silent. The secret was finally out. The secret he had guarded his entire life. The secret no enemy had ever discovered. The secret Delilah had spent months trying to obtain. And now she had it. At last. That night, Delilah knew he had told her the truth. She could feel it. The rulers of the Philistines were summoned immediately. Quietly, secretly. They arrived carrying silver and soldiers. Lots of soldiers. Meanwhile, Samson rested with his head in Delilah's lap, completely unaware, completely vulnerable. The strongest man in the world slept peacefully, trusting the wrong person. Outside, darkness covered the land. Inside, betrayal waited. A servant entered quietly, razor in hand. Delilah remained still. The blade touched Samson's hair. One lock fell. Then another. Then another. The hair that had been untouched since childhood disappeared, piece by piece. The symbol of his covenant with God lay scattered across the floor. And Samson never woke. Not until it was finished. Not until everything was gone. Then Delilah shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you!" His eyes snapped open, and Samson never woke. Not until it was finished. Not until everything was gone. Then Delilah shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you!" His eyes snapped open. He jumped to his feet. Adrenaline surged through his body. Just like every other time, he expected another easy victory, another broken trap, another escape. "I'll fight my way out," he thought. But something was different. Terribly different. The strength wasn't there. The power was gone. The presence of God he had taken for granted was absent. For the first time in his life, Samson felt weak, human, helpless. Fear flooded his chest. The Philistines rushed forward. He fought desperately. But his blows lacked power. His movements slowed. Within moments, they overwhelmed him. The impossible had happened. Samson had been captured. The Philistines celebrated wildly. Their greatest enemy had fallen. The man they feared, the warrior they could never defeat, now lay bound before them. Then came the cruelest moment. The moment that still shocks readers thousands of years later. The Philistines gouged out Samson's eyes. Darkness swallowed him forever. The man who had spent his life following his eyes now lost them completely. Pain exploded through his body. He screamed. But no rescue came. No miracle came. Only chains. And darkness. The champion of Israel was dragged away like an animal. Humiliated. Broken. Defeated. Or so it seemed. In Gaza, they threw him into prison. The once mighty warrior became a slave. Every day, he pushed a grinding wheel. Round and round. Hour after hour. Day after day. The people who once feared him now mocked him. Children laughed at him. Guards insulted him. Crowds gathered to stare. Look at Samson now. The mighty hero. The great warrior. The humiliation never stopped. Yet something was happening in the darkness. Something no one noticed. Something no one feared. His hair began to grow back. Slowly. Quietly. One strand at a time. More importantly, something else was growing. His relationship with God. For perhaps the first time in years, Samson had nothing left but the Lord. No pride, no reputation, no strength, no distractions, just prayer and repentance. Sometimes God does his deepest work when everything else has been stripped away. Months later, the Philistine rulers organized a massive celebration. Thousands attended. Music echoed through the temple. Food covered long tables. Laughter filled the air. At the center of the celebration stood a giant temple dedicated to their god, Dagon. The rulers wanted entertainment, and they knew exactly who to use. "Bring out Samson!" The crowd erupted with excitement. The blind prisoner was led into the temple. People pointed and laughed. Others threw insults. "Where is your God now? Show us your strength. Perform for us." Samson listened quietly. He could hear thousands of voices, thousands of enemies, thousands of people celebrating his downfall. The humiliation was complete. Or so they thought. A young servant guided him through the temple. Samson spoke softly. "Put me where I can touch the pillars that support the building." The boy obeyed. Samson stretched out his hands, one pillar beneath each palm. The massive structure rested upon them. Then silence filled his heart. For the first time in the story, Samson uttered a prayer that came from complete surrender. "O Lord God," his voice trembled, "remember me." A tear slipped down his face. "Please strengthen me just one more time. Not for pride, not for revenge alone, but for redemption. For one final act of purpose." The crowd continued laughing. They had no idea what was about to happen. Then Samson planted his feet. His muscles tightened. His hands pressed against the pillars. At first, nothing happened. Then a faint groan echoed through the temple. The laughter began to fade. Another crack. Then another. Faces turned upward. Confusion spread. Fear followed. The pillars shifted. The entire building trembled. People screamed. Rulers shouted. Panic erupted everywhere. And Samson pushed with everything he had left. "Let me die with the Philistines!" The pillars collapsed. The roof gave way. Stone crashed downward. Dust exploded into the air. The mighty temple collapsed upon everyone inside. In a single moment, thousands perished, including Samson. The strongest man who ever lived died beneath the ruins. But in his death, he accomplished more against Israel's enemies than he had during many years of his life. And so ends the story of Samson. a man chosen by God, a man blessed with extraordinary strength, a man who defeated lions, armies, and giants of fear, yet nearly destroyed himself through pride and temptation. His greatest battle was never against the Philistines, it was against his own weaknesses. And that is why his story still speaks today. Because every person has strengths, every person has weaknesses, every person faces temptations that promise pleasure but hide destruction. Yet Samson's story is not ultimately about failure. It is about redemption. Because even after his worst mistake, even after betrayal, even after blindness, even after disgrace, God had not forgotten him. And sometimes the most powerful comeback begins when a person finally realizes they cannot stand without God. The strongest man in the world fell, but he did not stay fallen. And that is why his story has never been forgotten. Before you leave, think about this for a moment. Samson was strong enough to tear apart a lion, strong enough to defeat 1,000 men, strong enough to make an entire nation tremble. Yet the thing that nearly destroyed him wasn't outside of him. It was the weakness he refused to confront. And maybe that's why this story still speaks to us today. Because every one of us has a battle no one else can see, a temptation, a struggle, a weakness that quietly whispers, just one more time. But Samson's story reminds us that failure is not the end. No matter how far you've fallen, no matter how many mistakes you've made, no matter how broken things seem right now, God's mercy can still reach you. Just as God heard Samson's final prayer, He can hear yours. If this story touched your heart, type, "God strengthen me," in the comments section. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what part of Samson's story impacted you the most. And if you enjoy powerful Bible stories that bring scripture to life, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story. Hit the like button so others can see this story too. Because some of the most incredible stories in the Bible are the ones you've never heard told this way before. Thank you for watching. And remember, your greatest weakness does not have to be the end of your story. God can still turn it into the beginning of your comeback.